Welcome to the ValuePros Show, where Value Pros get value ready. Hi, my name is Bruce Scheer, the host of the ValuePros Show. In this episode, we'll be talking with Neil Wilkins, a seasoned marketing consultant, author, podcaster, and the managing director of Viper Marketing. With over 35 years of experience, Neil specializes in mindful and sustainable marketing practices, blending cutting-edge strategies like AI and the metaverse with a commitment to creating ethical and impactful marketing experiences. So in this episode, we will be exploring the critical role of marketing in enhancing what ValuePros.io has coined as the total value experience. We'll uncover how marketers can create meaningful customer journeys that go beyond transactions to building trust, loyalty, and advocacy. So let's dive in. Well, Neil, I am so excited for you to be on the show today and talking to you about this topic I'm super passionate about. And we'll be speaking a lot about this in 2025. It's kind of a theme for us, but my business partners and I and other stakeholders, we've been thinking about this whole concept of total value experience. And so what we're trying to do is it's beyond the product or beyond the offering. A lot of people think about, hey, what's the value of that offering? What's the business value, the emotional value, the tangible value, the strategic value? Thinking about the offering and having that offering adopted by the customer. But that's crazy important. And we do a beautiful job of helping our clients characterize that. But this bigger concept is also the buying journey. How do we impact the total value experience of that journey so the buyers can buy and realize that potential value? So it's above and beyond product. It includes product, but what's the total value experience? And so you and I were talking about this, Neil, about just how do we improve the total value experience through marketing? I know it's any go-to-market effort and team has, multiple hats, multiple pillars, that all need to magically come together to create this total value experience. But you're a master in marketing, and I'm excited to get your spin on marketing's role in creating this total value experience. So let's talk about you, Neil, just for a little bit and kind of why you're here, about you and the coolest company name I think I've seen in the marketing consulting world, Viper. But tell us about you, Neil.
So, yeah, Bruce, well, I've been in marketing now for some 3.5 decades and counting, and it does feel like it sometimes, but it's so exciting. I think the reason I stick with it, the reason I'm so passionate about, value, purpose, the vision, and the kind of real strategic end of the marketing scale is, I guess, is because it is ever evolving. For me, and you'll know this, Bruce, in the work that you're doing, you can never stand still. It is always evolving and changing. And if you can embrace that kind of level of change, there's always opportunity. There's opportunity to get more competitive, to break into new markets, just to do exciting stuff. And I think that's what's always kept me so passionate as an educator. I do a lot of work here in the UK with Cambridge Marketing College as a podcaster, where I get to speak to some of the craziest minds, in sales and marketing and business development and entrepreneurship across the world. And it is just such an honor to be part of the kind of podcasting community. And of course, work with clients. So I'm actually there at the coalface trying to figure it out with marketplaces and sectors where this stuff is a challenge. I mean, it's real.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight for the audience that, you and we met on your podcast, the Neil Wilkins podcast. And I at the time, I had just launched my book, Inspire Your Buyers, Go to Market with a Story That Sizzles. And so my goal was to help, our clients and other people that probably couldn't afford our service fees to at least have a book that they could apply in their own world to create a sales narrative that sizzles. That's what I would talk about, Neil. And it was really fun having you interview me on that and talking about that. And Neil, I don't know if I mentioned to you, but it's reached top 10 in sales and selling management 3 times since you and I met on your podcast.
Wow.
So it's kind of I'm kind of ending 2024 on a bit of a high. I'm almost to 100 reviews and still holding at a solid 4.9. So it's been
Excellent.
well
But I
received.
love that point one though, Bruce. I love the point one because there's still room for improvement, and I love
Oh
that.
yes, oh yes, yeah, yeah. No, I'm probably gonna have to get 1,000 reviews to get it into 5. I think I had some troll hit a 3, didn't even leave a comment, etc. Who looks at that? I'm just looking at
Exactly.
some of the praise. It's just, boy, it's inflated my ego to say the least. But yeah, just back to our storyline. We met on the podcast. I really respect you, and you teach so many people and give back, which I think you and I with our podcast, that's what that's all about. Just having fun with that. So back to this topic, though, just to make sure people get what they need. We're talking about total value experience. I was describing that, but part of the genesis of this, weirdly enough, stems back to some time I spent in Singapore, and I flew this gentleman out first class to be our headliner at a service and quality conference. And his name's Carl Albrecht, and he'd written so many different books. But I picked up this book of his. It's called The Only Thing That Matters. And he really, really was seminal and way ahead of his time. But he's talking about the only thing that really matters is customer value. And he's probably even shaped the name of our company, ValuePros.io. That's just the heart of our DNA. We're trying to help buyers and sellers, what I say, get out of the value fog and clearly identify, articulate, and realize the value associated with the change that's being proposed. So it kind of came from Carl, but we've been thinking about, again, the concept of total value experience. Now, you and I met, and we were talking about what's marketing's role in influencing the total value experience across the journey, the buying and selling journey that needs to transpire for an organization to adopt a new solution and get off to the races and achieve that potential value. So we were talking about that, and we'll dig into it further, but I'd shared a framework with you, what we call our value ready framework. But before we dig in on some of the detail, Neil, just a big question to you is why is improving the total value experience, what we call TVE, through marketing so important? What would you say on that?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, isn't it, Bruce? Because I think so many organizations, brands, marketers, business development professionals kind of always say, I put customer first. And actually, what they really mean is I do a little bit of, kind of passive listening, and then I try and sell to them. I kind of push. And you kind of, it just, every single time I hear it, every single time I see it, I think just it's such a wasted opportunity. And I think it is this kind of paying lip service to this concept of value, where actually when you say, I've listened to the customer and I'm reflecting back everything the customer wants, and then actually what you're doing is you're using your products or your services, features and benefits to sell those, I guess, assets. And you're not actually considering the customer's perception of value. It's all from your own perception. It's all from your own perspective. And for me, that's just such a wasted opportunity, because there is something beautiful about actually truly stepping into the customer's shoes and viewing the world from their perspective. And so few people actually do that.
Oh gosh, that is just so well articulated, Neil. Just a catchphrase or a foundational phrase, I might say, is values in the eyes of the beholder, the recipient, and very very often I'm thinking, and when I'm interacting, especially on the sales side, are you selling? Are you showing up to sell stuff? Are you showing up to sell value? And with that concept of value being in the eye of the beholder, you need to kind of understand the beholder and kind of dig in and even co-create and shape what the total potential value could be. And that's the art and beauty and there's science behind it as well, of having those selling conversations, buying conversations, and co-creating what that vision of value might look like, and creating that case for change around that. And so
Mm.
few in the world of B2B sales and marketing do. And just some really, really rough stats this year. Gartner did a study and determined that 75% of buyers prefer to have a sales-free experience in the world of B2B. And that's shocking. It's horrible. They prefer to have a sales-free experience. Sometimes they have to have a sales experience in order to buy, which is even worse. So just it's not good. And then I think, Neil, I'd mentioned to you, the statistic of 60% of deals end in indecision, where there was a lot of energy that tried to go into making something happen. And then, both parties realize, nothing moves forward. We get into the stall of indecision, nothing moves forward, and all that time and energy was wasted, which is, Neil, Heathrow. I don't like standing in line in Heathrow. That's wasted time.
I totally get
One of
it.
my pet peeves. I love to help people move forward and accelerate and get the value. So no, I love what you said though. Yeah, this is a mindset issue. It's an orientation issue. There's a lot to unpack in this. Anything
Well,
else
I
you'd
think
say
that,
to anchor on the
yeah,
importance of it?
I just really wanted to kind of hook into something that you just said there, which kind of reminded me that I think too many of us are really on this kind of almost a race to the close. And I get it. We've got either sales, managers, or we've got our chief execs, or we've got business owners kind of putting the pressure on. You've got to close the deal. We need the revenue this month. Or,
Oh yeah.
we've done this campaign. We want to see the ROI from the campaign if you're a marketer listening to this. And to me, that's great, and I understand it. We've all got to maintain cash flow, but it kind of loses sight of the fact that the longer term value you're going to get back, revenue wise, business growth wise, brand quality wise, is going to come from being patient. And I think if we just continue to race to the close of each sale opportunity, we've missed that beautiful sweet spot where if we can build the relationship around value rather than always going back to our product or our service to close the deal, then we've got an opportunity to build something that is going to last. It's going to have longevity. And you just think about the lifetime value of that relationship is going to be 10x, even 100x more than just that single deal. And I think that's where we often fall down.
Okay, yeah, so well articulated. But back to this visual, I whipped this up with ChatGPT's image generator, just goofing off with that. But the whole concept of total value experience, there's also an angle for the vendor, as you highlight. When you get this right, you're going to realize more value. You're going to have a happy advocate. Your customer's going to realize the value that's been promised, that you co-created together, and then you measured for that first impact, and you're heading down the right direction. The value's there. Oh my gosh, you've got a loyal advocate, and you've got retention. You've got loyalty. They want to stick around because they see the value. They're realizing the value. They want to expand the value. There's just this wonderful element, what people think about customer lifecycle value, but that goes up as well, and everyone wins when that does, both the buyer and the seller and the stakeholders behind them. So it's a beautiful thing when it's done right, but very often it's a push and pull and tug, and and things die on the vine, as we talked about. It's just not going well. But let's talk about how to make it go well. So we've got this buying journey, what we call a value-ready framework. And for people listening to the show, the framework is built on four key phases. If somebody's going to buy something from you, what we did in our research, and a lot of primary research, some secondary research as well, is we coined this framework around the four phases. The first phase is you want to build trust. And there's certain dimensions around that. You need to be credibility ready, client ready. You kind of got to do some research and homework on the client just so you can show up and respect their time and then and be relevant right out of the gate. And then you need to be narrative ready. And that's what that best-selling book I was telling you about, Inspire Your Buyers, Go to Market with the Story That Sizzles, is all about nailing that narrative. Second phase is understand needs. So you're kind of into the game. You had credibility and you did your homework. You got a great story that's provocative and talks about a need for change that your buyer can buy into. Then we need to really kind of double down and understand needs. What's this mean for different stakeholders, the different buyers? That's being buyer ready. How do you get discovery ready? How can you go in and ask some really good questions to really get to the heart of the total potential value that you could be offering? And then you move into the phase 3, deliver insights. So you did your homework, had that wonderful discovery. Now you're ready to demonstrate to all the critical decision makers and stakeholders where that potential value is going to come from and how that's going to be realized. That's how what we call demonstration ready. Then moving into what we call justification ready. That's where, we get our value calculators, our ROI calculators. And of course, my firm does a beautiful job of creating assets like that, tools like that. But how do we help the buyer quantify the potential value and put together a compelling business case? That's what we call justification ready. But then you need to move towards the final phase of drive execution. And this is the stage that's typically hangs up most deals, where are you approval ready? One of our affiliates, Neil, he's a former head of procurement for Levi Strauss. And he said, Bruce, you wouldn't believe how many vendors would come to us and they hadn't even gone through information security yet. And so boom, add on 2 to 3 months of their sales cycle just on that. Not seeing that in advance and getting in line and making sure that process goes smoothly, or even the procurement process, making sure that procurement gets what they need, et cetera. That's what we call approval readiness under drive execution. Then, negotiation readiness. We do find that when you have a compelling total value proposition, that's quantified, that takes a lot of heat off that pricing discussion, et cetera, and the terms, and that'll help you in being negotiation ready. And then the final dimension there under drive execution is impact ready, where you and the buyer agree how are we going to measure success? What are the critical few metrics where we can get data to prove that you and I moved the dial? And then you and I can feel good about that. If we didn't, or if something's off, we can, course correct, early on and make sure you are realizing the value you expect or even getting more. And then who knows, maybe we'll talk about some other things to create even more value at that point. But how are we going to measure for that first impact success? And I've got a whole episode around that that's really wonderful. So Neil, we just laid out this value-ready framework from build trust, understand needs, deliver insights, and drive execution. Now over to you, the expert, talking about just the marketing role and impact across this, if you could. So not just above funnel, not just demand management, but all the way through to those closed deals and value realization.
And I think that's it, Bruce. I mean, I really do. I think it is about all the way through. I think there's a really key phrase for your listeners here. This whole idea of all the way through, because if you're listening to this from a marketing or sales perspective, and you're really being honest with yourself, you are not performing. And I'll put myself here. I'll look in the mirror and I'll say I'm not performing as much as I know you're not performing, guys, at the same level with every single one of these ready factors. You're not. None of us are. And I think one of the key things here is being brutally honest with yourself and saying, okay, where are we falling short? Where are we actually not delivering where we could be delivering? Where are we kind of almost being maybe a little bit complacent, maybe not as competitive, or maybe just our attention isn't there? Maybe we're lacking in a process or some kind of level of systemizing of what we do. So it kind of becomes a little bit woolly, a little bit flaky, a bit unpredictable. And then there is a weakness. There's an opportunity for you to kind of really sort of grasp that and say, right, here's an improvement opportunity. This is something we could really focus on maybe for next year, or maybe, within this kind of improvement cycle that we're going through as we're planning maybe for the upcoming quarter or whatever it is. So, I mean, for me, it is this whole through journey. We've got to be thinking about this from a marketing perspective right from the get-go, all the way through to this, as you describe it, Bruce, this building of advocacy, which obviously comes at the end. The thing I
Mm-hmm.
love about this buying journey, the way that you've constructed this, is that it really does overlay on top of, from a marketing framework, that very simple 3-step kind of pipeline, if you like, from a marketing perspective, which is awareness, conversion, retention. So we've got a very simple customer journey in marketing that says build awareness, the right kind of awareness with the right audience, convert that awareness into some kind of transaction, might be monetary, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a change of behavior or something like that, but you've got to have a conversion point. And then from that conversion point, build and retain the relationship to build loyalty and get advocacy. So I just see that beautifully overlaid on this building trust, understanding the needs, delivering the insights, and driving execution. It is end to end. And that is the beauty of this. And I just wanted to kind of, I guess, really highlight something that I think for many of us is kind of missing from this, because when I see clients doing this, not every client, some clients are great and some are really doing this, but when I see marketers and brands and some of my clients, they're doing great planning, but it's all about them. What they're not doing is a word that you've just said a number of times, Bruce, which is co-creating. They're not really co-creating this value that makes them ready at all these points, because what they're doing is they're making assumptions, or they're doing a piece of research. They're kind of jumping the gun and saying, okay, this is what we think is value based on the research, based on the trends. So we're going to put that into the mix. And then they feel the job is done. What they've failed to do is co-create that value with the customer or the prospect.
Hmm.
So the way
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing that word co-creation play out is right the way through this journey, this buying journey. So from a marketer's perspective, right at the front end is, okay, well, which channels are we going to use to warm the prospect up so that when the salesperson goes in, this person is ready. They're ready with the credibility because they understand what we do. They're ready. They understand the base narrative. Okay, the salesperson can go in and then really go deeper into what that truly means. But what they're doing is they've been warmed up with a consistent story. And they're doing that from a co-creation. So they've listened to previous customers and actually how it's been for them, rather than just jump in and say, hey, we've got this snappy little campaign. Aren't we clever? Look at the creative, and assuming that that is going to work. Of course, that's ivory tower planning. It isn't based on reality. It's not based on the perception of your customer or your prospect.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love
Mm-hmm.
the way that you phrase that co-creation and collaboration kind of set of words there, because I think that can play through this whole journey and both bond the prospect or the customer with the salesperson, but can also bring marketing into the same mix. And then that, I would see, is where marketing and sales can work together with the prospect or customer to really truly co-create the whole experience. And I think it's where those things aren't joined up is where we find so much stuff falling through the gaps, and those opportunities then go to waste. Yeah, I mean, is that kind of how you might see it too?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, very, very much so. I've got something to interject for you that I hope you might enjoy. One of our affiliates is out of the UK, Neil, and he's written a number of different books on value. But his definition of value is a mystery. And he plays off the Sherlock Holmes, but he says that, effectively it's a mystery until you figure it out. It's a puzzle. And you do that with your customer, not to them, but with them. And
Love that.
again, back to the co-create and discover together what that true value really looks like, the true real value for them in their context, in their situation. And what's the magnitude of that? What's the expectation around that?
And I think certainly for me, I kind of extending that on, and I love that analogy. I think it's great. Is this whole idea, which of course, a lot of us now in many commercial disciplines are starting to really think deeply about, which is this word personalization, because of course, if that is what we're trying to do in terms of value or experience, in the broadest sense, then personalization is achievable. I mean, it's a little bit of a pipe dream if all you're doing is a generic kind of offer from a sales and marketing perspective. But if you truly listen, if you are helping the customer or the prospect to discover the value that could be uncovered from the offer that you've got, and you're actually going on that journey together, there's an opportunity to truly personalize because you're listening, they're listening, and because you're co-creating, it's so personal to them. It almost by default is personalization. So you don't have to get clever and scientific. It is by going through this journey with them that you are actually personalizing. And I'm really excited by that because it becomes a reality. Something, the textbooks have said for decades, but never really had the perfect storm to realize it. But I think it's here now with this kind of buying journey.
Yeah, for us, Neil, we're really just trying to impact mindset for people to be thinking about total value experience, and 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 then on the notion of personalization, the tools that can be brought to bear are really incredible, especially now with the advent of AI. We ourselves have a tool. We call it Value Brief, and our clients can use it to effectively get really good at building trust. So, Neil, that's a bit above marketing, or how would I say? It's designed for the individual sellers, but what they can do is take their prospect's LinkedIn profile, um, and put that into our tool, and it'll help them. It'll do all this background homework and research. Look at the quarter earnings report and look at the 10K, the annual report, and investor interviews, conversations. Grab all that content to try to figure out what's important for that customer, what are their strategic objectives, what are they really trying to accomplish, what's their competitive sphere, what's bothering them at this point in time, what's going on in their world, and then it'll help characterize what you talked about, that base level narrative that you could use that's even tailored to that prospect, not just generic off of a website, but even tailored for that prospect, getting you into a posture of being narrative ready. So gosh, just with the right mindset and the tools, you can accomplish so much, even right now, towards that, that mystical future state of being of personalization, really making that happen. And then as you move into that buying journey, uh, you know, you just do that at a much deeper level, but you've earned the right to. You've built trust. Now, you got the credibility. Let's go forward and really do
Mm.
some work together so we can both achieve some incredible value here.
And I think it's interesting that you say that from an individual salesperson's perspective, that obviously they can use LinkedIn and go and do that deep research. From a marketer's perspective, I could also see that working beautifully in terms of campaign preparation, because if you have your customer persona profile, you could go through a similar kind of exercise with this. I
Oh
mean, they're
yeah,
kind of a make-believe kind of persona, but we're kind of almost stereotyping the ideal customer or prospect there, and then going through
that's right.
that same process with the AIs to, formulate a proposition or formulate some kind of value campaign in a similar kind of way. I could certainly see that working for marketers
Well,
too.
it needs to happen. We do work on the marketing side of the house as well, because at the end of the day, for a compelling total value experience, you need to have a through line. Through marketing, sales, product support. Everybody needs to be on that same wavelength, on that same signal. But, like you said, you have a base level narrative, but then you need to really tailor it for that customer and tailor that value proposition for that customer. So they can, see that and believe in that and buy and realize that potential value. So yeah, everybody's involved. I had the former CRO of Tableau, on the show just literally last week. And when we built their narrative for them, their pre-IPO narrative, they had their IPO for about $1 billion. And then after that, Salesforce.com bought them. So all my clients are multimillionaires now, Neil. So they're in a happy place financially, anyways. But once we built that narrative, it became a whole company narrative, from the chairman to product, service, professional services, everybody, sales, everybody went through training around the narrative so they could all be on that narrative. Because you got to be consistent at the end of the day. Of course, as a professional marketer, the power of consistency and showing up and really owning your position. But, that needs to flow all the way through.
And I guess that also translates not only internally within your own team, but also from the customer's perspective. Because if you have a multi-layer or multi-level sell going on, so you might be talking to a large corporate or multinational where, you have a number of different disciplines that this value proposition or this value-ready kind of journey needs to play out in. So you might be talking to the finance director, you might be talking to sales or, the operations team or whatever. There's also a little sort of interplay going on there where you need to customize almost this value story, if you like, or this narrative for individual disciplines. And it has to be consistent, so you have that thread playing through it, but also then it has to be very targeted towards each individual discipline, because they'll translate it differently, won't they? I mean, this is the thing, is you've got to be quite fleet of foot here. This isn't just a one-time exercise and it'll apply every time you do it. You've got to be really awake, haven't you, as a business professional now?
Absolutely. And also, if your organization, like I've done a ton of work with Microsoft, and about 90% of their revenue flows through their partners, the strategic partners, value-added resellers, et cetera. Huge component of their go-to-market success has been around enabling their partner community. But that's just another degree of understanding and complexity that gets woven into this. A lot of those partners, they have their own secret sauce that they add into the equation, and that needs to be part of the narrative and the value quantification, et cetera. That needs to be in the eye of the partner as a beholder, as they take it to their customers, the beholder. And that creates another level of complexity and opportunity for getting that right.
And I suppose what it's doing, just kind of thinking that through to almost to the conclusion of that kind of sort of idea and way of thinking, is it kind of reduces risk, doesn't it? Because if you have a big kind of supply chain or value chain that you're creating here, somebody like Microsoft, obviously it is huge, but even for a smaller organization where, you might be in partial control over how your messages are getting out, and particularly if you have resellers, etc. What this kind of approach is doing is it's making it more predictable, it's making it more robust, it's making it more consistent, so that when anybody who may be interested as a prospect sees or hears this storytelling, which is really what we're talking about in communication, it comes through in a consistent way. It isn't that salesperson A is going to have a very different take versus salesperson B. They're going to have some consistency. So we're building brands here, aren't we, for the long term? We're not just doing the sell in the short term. This is something that's got real longevity to it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And when done right, it can, really be the revenue accelerator. That's the sad thing. I see so few organizations truly investing in this. They might invest a lot in R&D, but not R&D around, their narrative and how they go to market, for sure. And then, things get even more slippery, even past that, front end of building trust and awareness. But, how that whole B2B buyer sales journey transpires, that gets super slippery as well. Big opportunity for everybody to move forward in a more orchestrated fashion, more consistent, more impactful. Big opportunity. Well, we've covered a lot, and this has been super fun. Of course, we're both passionate about it. But what else would you say, Neil? Just final thoughts for us as we think about this whole idea of, the total value experience and the marketing orientation towards that. Anything else that you could offer?
Yeah, it's just, driven a lot by kind of your philosophy, Bruce, which is this whole thing about marketing the sizzle. I think within this kind of a framework, I think part of the sizzle that comes through here is education, the word education, because I think for a lot of prospects and particularly existing customers, if you can educate them with a lowercase e, I'm not talking about preaching, I'm not talking about necessarily teaching, but as part of that collaboration, as part of that co-creation, if you can be educating them with opportunities, educate them with, the market trends, actually make their business life easier to do business within, you're going to make them feel great. They're going to perceive that you're giving them value because you are, and it's going to build that kind of that level of trust that goes way, way beyond the sell. It goes way, way beyond the marketing. This is actually about true human to human connection. And so when they see your email come into their busy inbox, or they see your caller ID coming up on their phone, they know they're going to get value. So they'll take that call, or they'll look at your email first. And I think if you're kind of helping them on that journey of looking good and feeling good, then that is true value, because otherwise it is still transactional, if we're being honest.
I'm so glad you said that. That was part of the genesis of why we called our company ValuePros.io. Because, if the buyer looks at the telephone, the caller ID, knows it's the sales guy, run, don't answer it, go straight to voicemail. But if they perceive that as, there's the Value Pro giving me a call, ready to create value for us, that's exciting. I'll take that one. That was our whole genesis and orientation around this. Funny enough.
Really? Well, it's almost like I knew, but I didn't genuinely, listeners. I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
clearly working, and it clearly does work. That's
Because
great.
we also wanted to help sellers, re-identify themselves. I'm not a seller. I'm a value pro. That's why I exist. I help. I bring the value. I really help my clients achieve that value, and I love getting my clients promoted because they made the right decision. But I really want to help out. It's all about the value.
Mm. And
So
I suppose, yeah, kind of a final sort of thought that kind of plugs into that one as well is, I guess it's little bit of a challenge, really, both for marketers and for salespeople, is can you actually provide value without ever mentioning your product or service? Can you actually go into a meeting and not talk about your product or service at all? And the customer then thinks, wow, that was a great meeting. Because if you can do that, I think then we're starting to hook into what value truly is, because it isn't your product or service. And that's the hardest thing, but it's the best thing to focus on.
yeah, yeah. No, I love it. Well, hey, that's a mic drop moment. I want to leave on that thought. That's a lovely, lovely provocation. So, Neil, just want to highlight for people how to get in touch with you. For people watching this, Neil has one of the coolest looking LinkedIn profiles I've seen. It's beautiful, and if you need to be in a happy place, go look up Neil's profile. It'll immediately calm you. I'll promise you that. And then when you look for Neil, it's Neil Wilkins X. And Neil does bring the X factor, so that's very valid. But Neil Wilkins X is the right Neil, and notice that he's a very beautiful man with a very calming profile. Also, Neil, let's talk about your podcast a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about the focus of it?
Yeah, the focus is for anybody with some entrepreneurial spirit. And what I mean by that is you could be business developer, you could be an account handler, you could be a marketer, anybody who's in a commercial sense or looking to differentiate and do things differently and truly add value. So it's very aligned with the conversation that we've had here today. So if you are looking to develop both professionally and personally, get some very interesting guests on here who will be, kind of just giving you some lifestyle, not hacks. I think that kind of devalues it, but kind of, they're doing wholesome business. Somebody described it as, this is wholesome, isn't it? Wholesome as in holistic, but wholesome as in just good business and being a good human in a commercial sense. So I love that, and that's certainly the kind of guests that we tend to see on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, Neil, thanks so much for your time, your consideration, and bringing your whole self to this and creating a wholesome experience for these listeners today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce. It's been an absolute pleasure again.
Well, today's conversation with Neil Wilkins was a masterclass in aligning marketing efforts with customer-centric value. We discussed how co-creation, personalization, and collaboration can transform the entire customer journey into an impactful total value experience. One of my key takeaways is Neil's challenge to us all. Can we deliver value without even mentioning our products? That truly resonated with me as a profound shift in how we approach customer engagement. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the ValuePros Show. And if you're feeling kind, leave a review so others can find and enjoy it too. Thanks so much. Keep on selling value.